You're talking about the transition is going to take some time, and it needs to take time to build that social licence to operate. At the same time, we've got push from governments, especially state governments in Australia, to bring down emissions quickly, and so they're mandating different things that it's to ensure that that happens. And then the other angle of that is that industry wants things to move fast. Some parts of industry want things to move fast. How do we balance all of that?
Okay, so again, it's about what are you trying to achieve? So what we're trying to achieve here is the fastest reductions in emissions for the least cost. So we run a thing called the South Australian Case Study. So in Australia we have this absolutely amazing case study called South Australia. It's in the national electricity market, it's in the gas market, it's no coal in the state. It's all wind, solar and gas, and a little bit of imports from Victoria. So we actually modelled that, and we've got all the data. So we actually have modelled that for today and for 98% renewable. And gas plays an enormous role in getting there. So you end up with this rump of gas. The gas that's left over is basically like a deep storage battery. It's about 450 gigawatt hours, which is about 1.5 times Snowy 2. And you can decide how you deal with that any time during that process. Decarbonise it to become hydrogen, biomethane, battery, pumped hydro, let all those technologies compete for that space. If you took, so South Australia currently is 0.3 tonnes per megawatt hour. Victoria's 1 tonne per megawatt hour. So if I took South Australia and overlaid it into Victoria and shut the coal down, we would save 70% of the emissions like that, right? And we can do that in New South Wales, we can do it in Queensland as well. So my view of the transition to net zero is we've got this very easy job. Let's just get rid of the coal. We've got 75% of emissions that go out. It's going to give us the time for hydrogen to develop, biomethane to develop, synthetic methane to be developing, batteries to develop. We can decide how to get rid of that rump. So when you get to 98% renewables in South Australia, it's 0.1 tonnes per megawatt hour. So when we get to 0.1 tonnes per megawatt hour in the national electricity market, the immediacy of dealing with it will also go away. It'll happen, but it's going to go away as an immediacy issue, which is the thing you were talking about. And you've got a lot of options of how to get rid of that. And the other great thing about it is whatever product you use to do that deep storage can actually be quite expensive because it's not getting used much of the time. So the gas, for example, when we look at it, the gas could be 3 times the price. We could use LNG to do that, no trouble at all at today's prices. So there is a transition to net zero, and that's what I keep saying to people like, you stop thinking about we're developing a hydrogen industry and think about getting to net zero. If you're going to get to net zero, get the coal out first while you're developing your hydrogen and your renewable gases industries, because you'll give it the time it's needed. The governments are better able to subsidise in that period, and all of the people buying from the network will be at 0.3 instead of 1.0. So they've already decarbonised without having to do anything on their plant. I mean, it worries me that we get hung up on, I want to develop this industry or that industry, and I understand why, because you have to have proponents for those industries. But if you take a step back, really what you want to be doing is getting rid of the coal as fast as you can.